My name is Adrian, and if you're reading this, I want you to know that life has a funny way of twisting things when you least expect it. Just 2 weeks ago, I was on top of the world, a successful marketing director at one of the most prestigious advertising agencies in New York City, engaged to the love of my life, and about to step into what felt like the perfect future. But sometimes, perfection isn't meant for everyone, at least not right away. I've always been someone who believed in hard work paying off. Growing up, I watched my parents struggle to make ends meet, juggling odd jobs while they raised me and my younger brother. They taught us early on that success doesn't come easy. It's earned through grit, determination, and sacrifice. And so, from the moment I graduated college with honors, I poured every ounce of myself into climbing the corporate ladder. By 32, I had reached a level many only dream of, leading campaigns for Fortune 500 companies, earning accolades, and building relationships that could open doors anywhere. But none of that mattered when I walked into the office last Monday morning. The air felt heavy as soon as I stepped off the elevator, though I couldn't quite put my finger on why. Maybe it was the way people avoided eye contact, or how unusually quiet the usually buzzing workspace seemed. Or maybe it was just intuition whispering that something wasn't right. Either way, by lunchtime, I found out exactly what that weight in the air meant. They called me into HR around noon. Adrian, Cheryl, our overly cheerful HR manager, said as she gestured for me to sit down across from her desk, "We need to discuss your position here at Sterling and Company." Her tone was calm but firm, the kind used to soften blows before delivering them. My stomach tightened. This wasn't going to be good. As Cheryl explained, the company was undergoing restructuring, which apparently included cutting costs by eliminating certain roles, mine being one of them. Restructuring? That's corporate speak for firing without having to admit fault. I sat there stunned, trying to process what she was saying. After everything I'd done for this company, for years I was disposable, just another line item on their budget spreadsheet. Cheryl went on to explain the severance package, health benefits extension, blah blah blah. None of it registered. All I could think about was the wedding invitations sitting neatly addressed on my dining table back home. Invitations we were supposed to send out later that week. Invitations that now felt like mocking reminders of all the plans I thought were set in stone. When I finally left the office hours later, clutching a cardboard box filled with the remnants of my career, a framed photo of my fiancé, a few pens, and some random knickknacks, I realized I hadn't even told anyone yet. Not my best friend, not my mom, and certainly not Alex, my fiancé. How do you break news like this? Especially when you're less than 3 months away from walking down the aisle. Speaking of Alex, he's the reason I kept telling myself to stay calm. He's also the reason I knew deep down that losing my job wasn't the worst thing that could happen today. You see, Alex comes from money, old money. His family owns half the real estate in Manhattan and has investments spread across industries worldwide. To say his father, Richard Whitmore, is influential would be an understatement. And while I never wanted to rely on anyone else's wealth or connections, marrying into the Whitmore family did have its perks. Not financially, mind you. Alex and I agreed long ago that we'd build our own life together, independent of his family's empire. But still, knowing Richard respected me, that he trusted me enough to oversee major deals for his businesses, meant something. Which brings me to the second part of this mess. Because getting fired wasn't the end of it. No. Fate decided to throw in a little extra drama for fun. It started innocently enough. I called Alex after leaving the office, needing to hear his voice more than anything. We talked briefly. He was busy wrapping up meetings and promised to grab dinner later. Then, because I couldn't bear the thought of sitting alone in my apartment staring at those damn invitations, I headed over to Richard's penthouse. He often worked late, and since he treated me like the daughter he never had, I figured popping in unannounced wouldn't be a problem. What I didn't expect was to find him pacing furiously in his study, phone pressed to his ear. When he saw me standing awkwardly in the doorway, he waved me in and motioned for me to wait. Whatever conversation he was having clearly wasn't pleasant. "Listen, Gerald," Richard barked into the receiver. "If you think I'm going to let this slide, you're sorely mistaken. You fire her? Without cause? Do you have any idea who she is?" There was a pause, during which Richard's jaw clenched so tightly I thought it might crack. "No, you listen to me. Effective immediately. Consider our $40 million contract terminated." Good luck finding another partner willing to invest that kind of capital in your sinking ship. He hung up without another word, slamming the phone onto the desk with such force that I flinched. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then, exhaling sharply, Richard turned to face me. His expression softened slightly when he saw the shock written all over my face. "Adrian," he began, his voice gentler now, "I assume you heard that?" I nodded numbly. "Was that about me?" "Yes." He sighed, running a hand through his silver hair. "Gerald Sterling called me earlier to inform me of your termination. Apparently they're restructuring." His lips curled into a bitter smirk. "Funny how these things happen, isn't it?" I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. What could I say? Instead, I sank onto the leather couch behind me, feeling the weight of the day crash down all at once. Richard sat down beside me, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Let me tell you something, Adrian. In business, respect is everything. And when someone disrespects someone I care about, someone who's proven themselves time and again, they answer to me." His words should have comforted me, but instead they sent a chill down my spine. Because as much as I appreciated Richard stepping in, I knew this wasn't over. Canceling a $40 million contract wasn't just a slap on the wrist. It was a declaration of war. And if there was one thing I'd learned about Richard Whitmore over the years, it was that he didn't fight fair. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Richard grilled me for details about my dismissal, asking questions I didn't have answers to. Why had they targeted me, specifically? Was there any indication beforehand that layoffs were coming? Had I burned any bridges unintentionally? Each question made me feel smaller, more vulnerable, until I finally snapped. "I don't know, okay?" I exclaimed, tears welling up despite my best efforts to hold them back. One minute I'm planning my wedding, the next I'm unemployed and apparently the center of some corporate vendetta. I don't understand any of this. Richard studied me silently for a moment, then nodded. "Fair enough," he said simply. "For now, focus on taking care of yourself. Leave the rest to me." By the time I got home that night, exhaustion had settled into my bones. Yet, sleep eluded me. Every time I closed my eyes, I replayed the events of the day, the cold detachment in Cheryl's voice, the look of fury on Richard's face, the hollow echo of his threat ringing in my ears. Somewhere between anger and despair, I drifted off, only to wake up hours later drenched in sweat and gasping for air. The days that followed were equally surreal. News of the canceled contract spread quickly, sending shockwaves through both Sterling and Company and the broader industry. Speculation ran rampant about what had prompted such drastic action from Richard Whitmore, though no official statement was released. Meanwhile, I tried to keep moving forward, updating my resume, reaching out to contacts, and forcing myself to plan wedding details I no longer cared about. Alex remained supportive, though I could tell he was struggling to reconcile his loyalty to me with his complicated relationship with his father. More than once, I caught him staring off into space, lost in thought. When I asked what was bothering him, he shrugged it off, saying nothing was wrong. But I knew better. Something was brewing beneath the surface, something neither of us dared to address directly. Then came the call from Gerald Sterling himself. It arrived on Thursday afternoon, interrupting a particularly grueling session of online job applications. Seeing his name flash across my screen sent a spike of adrenaline coursing through me. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Ms. Carter," Gerald began, his tone dripping with false sincerity. "I hope you're doing well under the circumstances." "Cut to the chase, Gerald," I replied coolly. "What do you want?" There was a beat of silence before he continued. "Look, Adrian, I'll be honest with you. Firing you wasn't personal. It was purely a business decision. Unfortunately, your association with Richard Whitmore complicates matters significantly." "My association?" I echoed incredulously. "You mean the fact that he happens to be my future father-in-law?" "Exactly," Gerald said smoothly. "And given recent developments, we find ourselves in a rather precarious situation, which is why I'm calling to offer you your job back." At first, I thought I misheard him. "Excuse me." "You heard me correctly," he pressed. "Come back to Sterling and Company and we'll restore your position, with a raise, naturally. Consider it our way of smoothing things over." I laughed outright, though it sounded more like a bark. Are you serious? You think I'd walk back into that snake pit after everything that's happened? It's not about pride, Adrian, Gerald countered. It's about opportunity. Think about it. You'd regain stability, prestige, all the things you've worked so hard for. Plus, returning would send a clear message to Richard that we won't be intimidated. And what message does firing me in the first place send? I shot back, that you're spineless cowards who prey on people when they're vulnerable. Gerald sighed audibly. Fine, suit yourself. But know this, if you refuse, we'll make sure no other agency will hire you. Ever. The line went dead before I could respond. Sitting there in stunned silence, I realized Gerald wasn't bluffing. This wasn't just about revenge anymore, it was about control. And if I didn't play my cards carefully, I risked losing far more than just my career. Over the next few days, paranoia crept in. Every email notification made my heart race. Every LinkedIn message felt like a potential trap. Even mundane tasks like grocery shopping became tinged with anxiety, as if someone might recognize me and judge me for my failures. Paranoia morphed into anger, then frustration, then sheer determination. If they wanted to fight, fine. I'd give them one, but on my terms. I started small, reaching out to former colleagues and clients, subtly gathering information about Sterling and Company's inner workings. Who held power? Who harbored resentment? Where were the cracks in their armor? Slowly but surely, pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. Meanwhile, Richard remained eerily quiet, offering neither updates nor advice. Part of me wondered if he regretted involving himself in the first place, while another part feared what he might be plotting behind closed doors. Through it all, Alex stayed by my side, though the strain between us grew palpable. Late one night, as we lay in bed staring at the ceiling, he finally broke the silence. "Do you ever wonder if we're cursed?" he mused softly. I turned to look at him, surprised by the vulnerability in his voice. "Cursed?" He chuckled bitterly. "Yeah, like maybe fate decided we weren't allowed to be happy. First my dad ruins your career, then your ex-boss tries to blackmail you. It's like the universe keeps throwing obstacles in our path." Reaching out, I took his hand in mine. "We're not cursed, Alex. We're just human. Sometimes life gets messy, and we have to figure out how to clean it up." "But what if we can't?" he whispered. "What if this is too big for us to fix?" For a long moment, I didn't answer, because deep down I feared he might be right. The question hung in the air between us, heavy and unresolved. What if this was too big for us to fix? For a moment, I let myself entertain that thought, the possibility of giving up, walking away from everything. The wedding, my career, even Alex. But then I remembered something my mother used to say when times were tough. You don't get to quit until you've tried every single way forward. So instead of answering him, I squeezed his hand tighter. "We'll figure it out," I said firmly. "Together." Alex looked at me with those deep brown eyes of his, searching for any trace of doubt. Finding none, he nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. "Together." The next morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. If Sterling and Company thought they could destroy me professionally and personally, they had underestimated how far I was willing to go to reclaim not just my life, but also my dignity. I called Richard first thing, asking to meet him at his office. When I arrived, he greeted me with raised eyebrows. "I didn't expect to see you so soon," he admitted, gesturing for me to sit across from him. "What's on your mind?" I took a deep breath. "I need your help, but not the way you think. This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about rebuilding, about proving to them and to myself that I'm more than what happened." Richard leaned back in his chair, studying me intently. "Go on." "I want to start my own agency," I explained. "Something small at first, focused on helping underrepresented voices break into advertising. Clients who value creativity over connections. And I need your guidance, not your money, but your expertise, your network." To my surprise, Richard smiled. Not the calculating smirk I'd seen before, but a genuine grin. "Now that sounds like a plan worth supporting," he said. "But Adrian, are you sure about this? Starting a business is no small feat, especially given everything you're dealing with right now." "I've never been sure of anything in my life," I replied without hesitation. Over the next few weeks, Richard became both mentor and ally. He introduced me to key players in the industry who believed in fresh ideas and ethical practices. Some were eager to partner with someone untainted by corporate greed. Others simply admired the audacity of taking on Sterling and company directly. Meanwhile, I poured all my energy into crafting a vision for my new venture, Carter and Company, named after my family's legacy of resilience. As word spread about my plans, former colleagues reached out offering their support. A few even expressed interest in joining my team once I was ready to launch. Among them was Mia Chin, a brilliant art director I'd worked closely with at Sterling. Together, we began sketching out campaigns that would set us apart. Bold, authentic work rooted in storytelling rather than sales pitches. Of course, Gerald Sterling wasn't going to sit idly by while I rebuilt myself. His attempts to sabotage me grew increasingly desperate. Anonymous smear campaigns popped up online, painting me as unprofessional and unreliable. Fake reviews flooded social media, claiming I'd burned bridges everywhere I went. But each attack only strengthened my resolve. With Richard's help, I hired a top PR firm to counteract the lies, turning the narrative around to highlight my determination and integrity. One evening, as Alex and I sat on the couch reviewing mock-ups for our logo, I noticed him smiling to himself. "What?" I asked, nudging him playfully. "Nothing," he said, shaking his head. "It's just, you're amazing, you know that? Watching you take control like this, it's inspiring." My cheeks flushed, but I couldn't deny the pride swelling inside me. For the first time since losing my job, I felt truly unstoppable. Months later, Carter and Company officially launched with a splashy event hosted at one of Richard's properties. The guest list included everyone from indie filmmakers to Fortune 500 executives curious to see what all the buzz was about. Our debut campaign, a collaboration with a nonprofit advocating for women in STEM, earned rave reviews, positioning us as innovators in the field almost overnight. Sterling and Company, meanwhile, struggled to recover from the fallout of canceling Richard's contract. Without his investment, several high-profile projects fell through, leading to layoffs and plummeting stock prices. Rumors swirled that Gerald might step down as CEO sooner than expected. On the personal front, Alex and I finally set a new date for our wedding, a quiet ceremony overlooking Central Park, surrounded by close friends and family. As I walked down the aisle toward him, wearing a simple yet elegant gown, I realized how much we'd grown together during those chaotic months. We weren't just two people tying the knot. We were partners who had faced adversity head-on and come out stronger because of it. Afterward, during the reception, Richard raised a glass to make a toast. "To Adrian," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "When I first met her, I saw potential. Now I see greatness. She's proven that no obstacle is insurmountable. Not bad bosses, not canceled contracts, not even the weight of other people's expectations. Here's to many more chapters of success, love, and triumph." The room erupted in applause, but all I could focus on was Alex's smile as he pulled me into his arms for our first dance. As we swayed to the music, I whispered in his ear, "Do you still think we're cursed?" He laughed softly, resting his forehead against mine. "Nope, just lucky." And for the first time in what felt like forever, I believed it too. Life may have thrown its worst at us, but we'd fought back with courage, with love, and with an unshakable belief that happy endings aren't given, they're earned.